Hello, I'm Jacob and you are watching The Prepper's Bunker Outdoors. Today's video is to the minority of my viewers and in fact the minority of people in general, as are all politics from the pulpit videos, but today's video is going to be even more specific and potentially poignant because we're going to be talking about the family. Now, a little bit of backup about this discussion, the story behind this is I'm originally from Washington State. I now live in Kentucky. The residents and friends that I have come to know from Kentucky are the most family-oriented people I have ever met in my life. They cling to family through thick and thin, whether they like their family or not, in many cases, more strongly than any group of people that I have ever met in a way that is uniquely Kentucky. And so, although this message is a little bit specific to that group of people, it may in equal measure be for you as well. And specifically, we're going to talk about the secular term, blood is thicker than water. We are going to talk about the living water, Jesus Christ, and the importance of earthly family for the Christian versus the spiritual family. So our first reading is out of Matthew 12. It's Matthew 12, 48 to 50. Of course, I don't have it memorized, so I've got to read it to you here. So the background, Jesus is preaching to a group of people. People are all around him, and his family comes up, his mother and his family. And the disciples come to him and say, Jesus, your family is here to see you. And Jesus, verse 48 starts, but he answered and said unto him that told him, who is my mother, and who are my brethren? And he stretched forth his hand towards his disciples, and said, behold, my mother and my brethren. For whosoever shall do the will of the Father which is in heaven, the same is my brother and sister and mother. So in this short passage, we hear from Jesus' own mouth the weight that he puts on his family. Family will always on earth have some measure of importance to us, most likely. And Jesus clearly was affectionate of his family. And this was not him showing disaffection to his family, but was giving proper respect to his true family. And that is a spiritual family, the body of believers of Christ, the eternal family, as opposed to the mortal family. So this is sparked, as likely most of the videos in this series will be, by an event. I was not able to sleep last night. A mother high on meth and marijuana, not that whatever, drove her vehicle over a flooded bridge that had a sign on it that said not to drive across the bridge, that was flooded over the rails on either side of the bridge, where her vehicle stalled. Now, this mother was not visiting. She was not some person surprised by these happenstances. This happens every year. She is local. She should not be surprised to see this. And but she was freaking high as a kite. She had her 2 children in the vehicle, age 7 and nearly age 2. Her vehicle stalled, hydrolocked, and her 21-month-old baby was allegedly swept away out of her arms. When firefighters and she said that due to the shock of the cold of the water, she was passing out. and her 7-year-old son had to slap her and pull her hair to wake her up because the water's so cold. And her baby was swept out of her arms. Found 45 minutes later, and this 21-month-old baby later perished. Now, this mother was not in shock because of the water and passing out because of the water, of course, or else her 7-year-old son would also have been affected the same way. She was passing out. She was overdosing. She was ODing. She's passing out because she's high on meth. More importantly, firefighters that were on the scene said that there was no current. The baby was not swept away in a rush. In fact, there was a backflow of water from the river. So, as I understand it, the baby was not far away. The mother was not on the scene when firefighters got there, and nobody was looking for the baby, and nobody said anything about the baby, and the baby perished. And the mother, of all people, was posting about it on Facebook, posting selfies with her dying son in the hospital, clearly looking for attention with her. She's, I think, 28 or 30 or something like that, with her 56-year-old drug dealer boyfriend. And looking for attention, and these people in Kentucky, her family, were talking about, don't judge her. Don't judge her. Nobody say anything negative about her. If you're not her family, you have no place to have an opinion. Excuse me. This disgusted me. Utterly and absolutely disgusted me. In fact, if someone in my family were to do this and to lose their child, I would not only be ashamed of them, but I would be more likely to call them out rather than less. If my own brother overdosed on meth and killed his child, I would probably kill him. I probably would. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Time and time again here in Kentucky, we see, as in this case, this extreme bondage to family, and it's traditional in this area, back to Hatfield and McCoy's and beyond. This bond to family that goes beyond morals or logic or anything else. And I'm not here to tell you that that is wrong necessarily, but that bond to family needs to be to your Christian body of believers. So what I'm here to tell you is that if you are connected like that to family outside of salvation, likely you will be burnt. In fact, although you are not to be hostile towards them unnecessarily, you should still be a good testimony to them. They are actually, if they're your family, more dangerous, regardless of how much you love them and how much they say they love you. They are more dangerous to you than anybody else. A reference for that is Luke 12:53. Now, here in Luke, Jesus, again, from his own mouth, is talking about his second coming. And I find it interesting that both of these are in chapter 12 here. Jesus says in verse 52, for from henceforth there shall be 5 in one house divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. The father shall be divided against the son, and the son against the father, the mother against the daughter, and the daughter against the mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. As we here in Kentucky have just elected a communist as our governor, and as red flag laws are being put on the table in Kentucky and on the table in Virginia and elsewhere, we are coming to a legal time where a word whispered in the government's ear can lead to your disarmament and death. This will become the standard across the nation with time, and this will be specifically targeted at Christians. Once again, I am not telling you to shun your unsaved earthly family. I am not telling you to mistreat your unsaved earthly family. In all things, remain a good testimony and keep the distance necessary, however close or far. Lord willing, your family's name is written in the book of the Lamb, and their time for the realization of that has not yet come. And it could be your job in glorifying God to continue to be a good testimony and to speak to them, for them to come to the realization of their destiny. But I would implore you, play your cards close to your chest. Remember who is important in your life. Have a backup plan, and in this backup plan, they cannot be involved. I'm sure that I forgot a lot of stuff in this video. It's much longer and more rambly than I intended for it to be. The situation specifically that I'm dealing with right now is more hard for me than I would expect, because my 1-year-old son, the thought of losing him in this manner is unbearable. The thought of this mother losing her son, not for her sake, but for her son's sake, is unbearable. The thought that she still had her 7-year-old son is unbearable. The thought that they are all being cared for by a crackhead is unbearable. This is not the first son that she's lost. She has smothered a child in the past, something that only alcoholics and drug addicts typically do. Thank the Lord, she was arrested, as was her crack dealer boyfriend, and she is being charged with negligence and murder, among other things. I now can only pray that her remaining 7-year-old son goes to a family that can be a positive influence, that he cannot be genetically predisposed to inebriation and intoxication, and that the Lord can use these experiences in his life for furthering his kingdom. It's a hard deal. But nobody's talking about the importance of water. And so blood might be thicker than water, but water is forever. Blood is temporary. Remember that when you are confronted with struggles with family. And also remember that when you are confronted with struggles with your Christian family. Remember what is eternal and what is mortal. Thank you for watching. I look forward to talking to you in the comment section below. I hope that you have a blessed day.